Greetings, everyone. Today we're diving into the topic of white collar crime, an often overlooked but highly impactful issue in our society. Unlike street level crimes, white collar crimes are often nonviolent offenses committed in professional settings, typically for financial gain. These crimes exploit systems of trust, often in corporate, financial, or governmental environments, and can have devastating economic and societal consequences. White collar crime is a term first coined by sociologist Edwin Sutherland in 1939. It references acts like fraud, embezzlement, insider trading, bribery, and money laundering. These offenses are characterized by deceit and abuse of authority rather than physical force. While they may seem abstract, their impact is anything but. White-collar crimes cost billions of dollars annually, destabilize markets, and erode trust in institutions we rely on, such as corporations, financial institutions, and even public offices. For example, consider the infamous Enron scandal, where executives manipulated financial statements, resulting in one of the largest corporate bankruptcies in history. White-collar crimes is often perpetrated by well-educated and influential individuals, such as corporate executives, financial advisors, and other public officials. These crimes occur in environments built on trust, where perpetrators have access to sensitive information and resources. A lack of regulatory oversight and ethical accountability, which creates an environment where such crimes can thrive. Understanding white collar crime is crucial, not just to prevent financial losses, but also to preserve trust in our societal systems. Businesses, regulators, and individuals all have roles to play in fostering environments of accountability, transparency, and ethics. Together, we can mitigate the risk and build a more trustworthy foundation of our economic and societal structures. Now, let's explore why this is important. Even though we are not talking about more heinous crimes like burglary, arson, or even murder, let's talk a little further. Unlike violent crimes that grab headlines, white collar crimes often unfold quietly, yet their impacts ripple through economies, communities, and lives in profound ways. White collar crime isn't just about a few bad actors and a systemic issue. These crimes cost billions of dollars annually, affecting investors, employees, and even taxpayers. The economic impact of white collar crimes highlights why prevention and accountability are critical. Beyond financial losses, white collar crimes erodes trust in our institution, whether it's bank manipulating interest rates or pharmaceutical companies engaging in fraudulent practices. These violations make people question the integrity of businesses, financial systems, and even government entities. Restoring this trust is crucial for societal stability and economic growth. White-collar crime disproportionately affects the most vulnerable. When healthcare fraud drives up costs and when tax evasion depletes public resources, the burden often falls on average citizens. Addressing these issues isn't just about compliance, it's about fostering a societal where accountability and fairness were valued. By talking about white collar crimes, we take the first step towards creating a more ethical and equitable system. White collar crime is more than just a headline grabber. It's a significant issue with far reaching consequences. Let's set the stage with the historical context of this phenomenon. So, why do people commit white collar crimes? The cause often include greed, opportunity to exploit gaps in oversight, and the drive for power. When systems prioritize profit over ethics, individuals may feel justified by bending or breaking the rules. White-collar crimes take many forms: fraud, embezzlement, insider trading, bribery, tax evasion, just to name a few. These crimes can devastate economies, undermine public trust in institutions, and leave lasting scars on affected communities. For instance, the Enron scandal not only caused massive financial losses, but also led to stricter regulations in the form of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Prevention and accountability is critical. Businesses must foster a culture of transparency and ethics. Regulators need to enforce strict oversight, and individuals should remain vigilant. Implementing strong compliance programs, conducting regular audits, and promoting whistleblower protections are just a few measures that can help deter these crimes and build a fair, more accountable society. Now that we've laid the foundation, let's dive deeper into some notable historical cases of white-collar crimes and their lasting impacts. Understanding the historical context of white-collar crimes is a key to grasping its evolution and societal impact. Over the decades, these crimes have prompted significant legal and regulatory changes aimed at curbing abuses of power and safeguarding public trust. Let's explore the origins of the term and examine key legislative actions and notable cases that have shaped our understanding of white-collar crime today. The term white-collar crime was introduced again by sociologist Edwin Sutherland in 1939. He aimed to highlight that crime isn't exclusively to street-level offenses. Instead, individuals in positions of authority, corporate executives, public officials, and others, can exploit their roles, leading to crimes that are less visible but equally damaging. Sutherland's work challenged society to see crimes beyond traditional boundaries and consider the broader impact of abuses of power. The emergence of white-collar crime led to pivotal legal reforms. For example, the Security Act of 1933 and the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 were enacted during the Great Depression to combat fraudulent stock practices and restore confidence in financial markets. Later, the Foreign Corrupt Practice Act of 1977 aimed to address corporate bribery of foreign officials, marking an important step in promoting global corporate accountability. Several cases in modern history have defined the landscape of white-collar crime. The Watergate scandal of 1972 to 74. This political scandal exposed illegal wiretapping, misuse of funds, and obstruction of justice at the highest level of government. It highlighted the intersection of political and white-collar crime, leading to reforms like the Ethics in Government Act. Savings and loan crisis in 1980s to 1990s. Widespread fraud within savings and loan institutions resulting in billions of taxpayer bailouts and tighter banking regulations to address unethical financial practices. We already mentioned the Enron scandal of 2001, which is the collapse of energy giant Enron, revealed systematic accounting fraud used to hide losses. This case led to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which strengthened corporate governance and financial disclosure. WorldCom scandal 2002, which followed the Enron. WorldCom executives inflated profits by misreporting expenses, leading to another major bankruptcy and reinforcing the need for strict oversight. Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. Over decades, Madoff defrauded investors in $65 billion. His case remains a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked greed and betrayal of trust. From legislative reform to landmark cases, the historical context of white-collar crime reveals its deep impact on society and legal systems. Understanding these events helps us appreciate the importance of regulations, corporate accountability, and the fight against such crimes. Next, let's dive into the characteristics and motivation behind white-collar crimes. White-collar crime stands apart from other types of offenses due to direct characteristics and the environments in which it occurs. Unlike crimes of violence and theft, these offenses often involve individuals in positions of trust and power who exploit systems of personal or organizational gain. Let's examine the typical perpetrators and the environment where these crimes often take place. White-collar crimes are typically committed by individuals who have access to resources, authority, and specialized knowledge. These perpetrators fall into three main categories: corporate executives, CEOs, CFOs, and other high-ranking officials that may exploit their positions to commit fraud, embezzlement, or insider trading. Business professionals, accountants, attorneys, and consultants that misuse their expertise to engage in crimes like tax evasion or security fraud. Public officials, politicians, or bureaucrats who engage in corruption, bribery, or misuse of public funds. White-collar crimes thrive in specific environments where trust and access intersect. Corporate settings, crimes like insider trading, embezzlement, and fraudulent reporting that originate in corporate boardrooms. Financial institutions, banks, and investment firms are hotspots for these crimes, such as money laundering, mortgage fraud, and Ponzi schemes. Government offices, corruption of bribery, they're common in environments where public officials oversee procurement regulations and significant budgets. Understanding the typical perpetrators in their environments of white-collar crimes helps us recognize the systemic vulnerabilities that allow these offenses to occur. By identifying these characteristics, we can better develop strategies to prevent and address such crimes. Next, I'll turn the remainder of the presentation over to my partner. Take it away, sir.
The key motivations of white-collar crime are greed, power, and opportunity. All of these factors align with both psychological and situational elements that drive unethical behavior in professional environments. Greed is defined as the desire for excessive wealth or status with material gain beyond what is necessary or ethical. Many white-collar criminals are already in financially stable positions, but are driven by the need to accumulate more wealth. Greed creates a sense of dissatisfaction, pushing individuals to exploit their positions of trust to secure even more of a financial gain. Examples of this include embezzlement or securities fraud, where the perpetrators manipulate the system for personal profit. Power is believing that you are above the law. This comes from when you have control over others, resources, and the ability to make decisions within an organization. Those in positions of authority may abuse their power for personal and organizational profit. It creates a sense of invulnerability, leading to rationalizations like, "I deserve this," or "no one will question me." Executives engaging in insider trading or coercive practices such as bribery and corruption are clear examples of abusing power. That leaves us with opportunity. Opportunity comes from seeing the gaps in oversight or regulations that allow unethical or illegal actions to occur without immediate detection or consequence. Weak regulatory frameworks, lack of oversight, and poor corporate controls create the opportunities for misconduct. Opportunity often interacts with greed and power to facilitate the execution of white-collar crimes. Things like seeing weaknesses in accounting systems or regulatory loopholes offer up these opportunities for those of ill intent. Together, these motivations form a framework for understanding why white-collar crime occurs, emphasizing the need for robust ethical standards, regulatory oversight, and corporate accountability. Now, there are many types of white-collar crimes, and a few have some specific subsets within them. These are some of the most common the FBI come across. First up is healthcare fraud. Healthcare fraud includes false insurance claims or overbilling clients. Along with costing tens of billions of dollars, it can also lead to increased premiums and prices with the intent to help recover the losses suffered. So in the end, it is the customers paying the price. Next, we have mortgage fraud. There are two types within this category. First is fraud for profit, where home buyers steal cash and equity from lenders and homeowners by making false claims to purchase property and receiving a loan. And next is fraud for housing, where mortgage borrowers lie about incomes and assets or influence the property value in order to receive more money. Within financial fraud, we have embezzlement. This is where the theft of funds by someone in a position of trust. For instance, a CFO siphoning company funds for personal use. Then there is also misapplication of funds, which is using funds without the proper authorization. Bribery and corruption are fairly self-explanatory. It is offering or accepting something of value to gain an unfair advantage. This is something we commonly see in public procurement, but can also extend into just about anywhere, from government operations to attempting to get out of a speeding ticket. Money laundering. This is where you clean dirty money by making it appear the money came from legitimate sources. This type of fraud is usually associated with cartels and gangs. The show Ozark is a perfect example of what this is. IP theft includes copyright infringement and even extends to economic espionage, which is where foreign competition actively targets successful businesses and sometimes entire industries in an attempt to subvert their success. Corporate fraud contains insider trading, where you use confidential company information for stock market gains. A well-known example is Martha Stewart and Raj Rajaratnam of the Galleon Group. Along with insider trading is accounting fraud, where people or companies will cook the books to make finances appear different than what they really are. This is what Enron was caught doing. Tax fraud and tax evasion are next. This is where lying about income to reduce taxes or avoid taxes altogether are. This is done by hiding as much income as you can or by inflating deductions on your taxes. This is how they were finally able to put Al Capone in prison, so this is a very serious offense. White-collar crime doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are certain aspects of an organization that can help lead to this type of behavior. A few key factors can be weak regulatory frameworks, psychological elements, or the organizational culture itself. Companies with weak regulatory frameworks have insufficient oversight or lacks enforcement capabilities or rules that allow the crimes to go undetected for long periods of time. These holes create opportunities for these types of criminals to exploit, arguably setting the whole crime in motion. Other times, it's just who the perpetrator is as a person. A lot of the time, the perpetrators rationalize their behavior, thinking everyone does it, or I deserve this, making their unethical behavior seem justified. The longer they are able to get away with this behavior, the more they will try to get away with. This leads into the organizational culture itself. Companies with a lack of ethics or accountability create environments where employees feel crime is acceptable or can go unnoticed. This makes them feel emboldened to push the limits of what is ethically acceptable, and they will try to maximize their gains when and where they can. This is not just limited to companies. Entire governments can fall victim to this just as easily. Just like Syria, who ranks 177th on the corruption scale, or South Sudan, who is dead last. This culture does not appear overnight. It begins with little steps and little pushes over a period of time from weeks to years, until eventually the whole system has shifted to what has been allowed to persist. The effects of white-collar crime can be felt at almost every level of society, either as a result of government corruption or the legal battles that follow. These effects can be wide-ranging as well. Economically speaking, as of 2017, the FBI estimates that fraud and corruption cost the U.S. economy as much as $300 billion a year. These losses often trickle down to employees, shareholders, and consumers, and can be felt in financial markets if the scale is large enough, as was the case for Enron. The reputational damage the institution can be up against can be considerable as well. Companies implicated in scandals face a loss of trust from the public, investors, and clients. This damage can last years, if not be indefinite. Wells Fargo is still remembered for its unauthorized account scandal. The poster child of reputational damage, though, is again Enron, whose name is now synonymous with corporate fraud. Lastly, the legal consequences of these actions can be the nail in the coffin for any who survive the financial loss and public scrutiny. Perpetrators face prison sentences, hefty fines, and government sanctions. Organizations may face lawsuits, regulatory penalties, and long-term reputational harm. These types of crimes are never about one person. The ripple from this unethical behavior can be extremely far-reaching, leaving us all to feel the aftermath. In conclusion, white-collar crime is a pressing issue with far-reaching economic and societal impacts that demand immediate attention. These crimes, often committed by individuals in positions of trust and influence, erode the foundations of our financial systems, corporate environments, and public institutions. They undermine public confidence in businesses, damage the reputations of industries, and impose significant financial losses on investors, employees, and communities. By understanding the root causes, such as greed, power, and opportunity, in identifying the types of white-collar crime, including fraud, embezzlement, insider trading, and bribery, we can take targeted and meaningful steps towards prevention. Recognizing the consequences of these crimes, which extend beyond monetary losses to include reputational damage and a loss of trust in vital institutions, further highlights the importance of proactive measures. To combat white-collar crime effectively, businesses must establish a culture of ethics and accountability, with leaders setting the tone for transparency and integrity. Regulators and lawmakers play a critical role in strengthening oversight mechanisms, closing legal loopholes, and enforcing strict penalties for violations. Meanwhile, individuals, whether employees, customers, or investors, have a responsibility to remain vigilant, report suspicious activities, and demand ethical practices from the organizations they support. Collaboration between these stakeholders is essential to building systems that prioritize ethical decision-making, robust compliance programs, and a commitment to transparency. By fostering environments that value integrity and accountability, we can work toward a future where white-collar crime is not only deterred, but also actively mitigated, ensuring a more equitable and trustworthy society for all. What are your thoughts on how best to prevent this issue? Thank you.